studying abroad makes you more employable than someone who studied in Zimbabwe? So someone who's been local. Just your general thoughts off the bat. Pam? Yes? No?
I think no.
No?
No.
Martin?
I think it's a mix. It depends on where abroad you studied.
So it's a yes.
In a way.
I'm a yes.
No.
No.
I'm gonna say no.
No, I think there's just that bias towards people who have studied abroad. Like if you've gone to the UK, if you've gone to the States, people seem to think that, you know, the degree or how they teach, actually no, just the degree is different compared to a degree from Zim, right? And you can say yes or no, but I think it's just still there, that bias is still there.
I feel like it's kind of like industry specific. For instance,
Definitely.
for the legal side of things, if you're like into law and stuff, you probably won't really be that employable here, depending on where you studied, because you studied a different type of law, so you don't understand the law this side. Whereas you go to accounting, which is basically the same everywhere in the world except in America, they would maybe prefer someone who did articles outside of Zim, because you've been exposed to a lot of other things, and because Zim is globalizing, you kind of need that exposure to be able to account for the certain things.
I think at the end of the day, it really matters who you know in terms of getting employed in Zimbabwe. So, I mean, exactly what Tino is saying about the fact that if your boss doesn't have that qualification, worse still if you've got a PhD or you're studying for a PhD and then your boss is like, well, I haven't even got a master's. So I'm supposed to supervise or oversee someone that's doing a PhD.
Have you personally experienced
I
that?
have experienced that, and in the end you're being kind of hazed or reminded that, oh well, you know, in spite of the fact that, you know, you're doing a PhD, your writing isn't quite what we need, or maybe in this sector
It's too extra.
we write differently in the development sector.
I went to MSU, which is local, and you find that because most of the universities in Zim are new, we've only had like one university for the longest of time, which is UZ. Most of your employers, if it's big companies and all, are from UZ, and they've got that institutional bias. So I got to my first job on attachment, and I get there and they're like, MSU, like, so I said to myself, you know what, for this 1 year, I'm not going to defend my university, but I want them to tell me after I'm done. And when I was finishing, my employer actually said, do you know anyone who was a year behind you who would want attachment? So I feel like, okay, in terms of getting the job, there's a lot of bias. It's not just about where you've learnt as well. Sometimes, like she's talking about, it's about who you know. Your surname can get you a job. But when you're in there, you got to work to change their views. So he learnt in SA, when you get that job, change the views about SA. Because right now, we all believe that SA was Mafa. That's for me as well. Like,
my view when it comes to this is the perception that we have to say, okay, this, because just because it's not in Zim is better. I know people that have gone to an unaccredited university, you know, Mexico, Russia, Cyprus. You know, like this is not a legitimate university that anyone actually, you know, recognizes. But you're going there because you think that, oh, it's definitely going to be better than, you know, MSU or UZ person. And I think that's a very, it's a terrible.
What were your reasons for not wanting to study in Zim?
Okay, well, my reasons were I wanted to be in a different environment completely.
you wanted to be free
Exactly.
from your parents.
my reason was kind of what we're talking about. I'm not going to get a job after this. Like, I don't know. I think at the time, Zim was just uncertain. Do you know what I mean? It was just an uncertain time, and I'm like, look, if I've got an opportunity, and like, I didn't go to the best uni even in the UK. It wasn't like, you know, top 20 or anything, but I went there.
When we say more employable, what are we talking about? Because you can be hired, let's say you've got a Harvard graduate, and the company will now hire you because they can say on their company profile, oh, you know, we've got a list of Harvard graduates. But then you face the same problem that you're talking about, is now you as that graduate in that job, you've got these new ideas, but you know, they stifle you. Exactly. So are you still more employable, and what is the degree to it? Like, is it because simply the title of your degree, or what you can actually add to the job?
I think what people take for granted is that when you go to a country, there's a learning and an unlearning process that comes with it when you come back home. Because when you assimilate into a different culture, whether it's at the university or it's just within the community overly, you have to behave different ways to fit in more, perhaps articulate yourself differently, whether your accent is changing so that people can understand you better. And then when you come back to Zimbabwe, we sometimes assume that as I was, whether it was in the UK or America or Australia, I don't need to change and I can be exactly that. But people have responses to the way that you're dressing.
I started accounting. I learned with a guy, and second year, everything was cool. He had dreadlocks. And then second year, we go for attachment third year, right? Second year, second semester, the dean just comes to him, and the dean of our faculty, he's like, okay, so if you want to go for attachment, you got to get rid of your locks. And we're like, oh, what?
That's true.
And we're like, but you let him go through 2 years of accounting. And that's all because in this country, that's but it's not generally in this country, but it's with the degree. Because he asked the question, okay, how many of you are going to go and give their money to some guy with locks? Because for us, what we look at when we see someone with locks is someone who smokes weed. So you're like, my man. I was worried about this, and I asked a question, okay, what kind of lawyer do you think this guy is? He had dreadlocks, and they said, dreadlocks, human rights, straight up. I'm like, oh, wow. So we've got this certain perception that we've cooked up about every place. So you see, that's why I said in the first place that it's half and half. You may be more employable depending on where you're coming from, or you may not be more employable. Because when we look at South Africa, what do we see? I was going to give an example of if we here were a panel and we're trying to bring in an engineer, and we've got some guy who learned at some university in Germany, and he did 3 months of internship at BMW, and we are working for Photon, and we're trying to bring someone in. Do we take someone who went to Mtare Poly or this German guy? Exactly. From my experience, Zim education is kind of blinded. It's academic.
You're talking about being an employee.
And
you have to be an employee. You don't know.
But we need people in this world who are academic and as well, because from my own point of view, education teaches you to think, but it doesn't teach you how to think. And you need the other stuff to learn how to think. And this is the reason I got accepted at UZ and MSU. I really, really wanted to go to UZ, but then for some funny reason, they said you do economics for the first semester, and then the rest of your degree you're doing accounting. And I was like, no, you know what? I'm not going to waste this time. So I just went to MSU, which I didn't even apply for. My sister applied for me. I did not want to go there.
Shout out your sister.
I didn't want to go there. But after 4 years of my degree, I will tell you that I've done stuff that no one my age has done, simply because I went to that new university that was trying to bring out a name for itself, so they didn't focus too much on the academics. They gave me other stuff because they were trying to build a name for themselves. And for that reason, I've gotten international exposure through my university because of that.
You know what? I think it goes both ways. Like you said, it's very industry specific. There are some industries that favors someone who has gone abroad and studied abroad and come back home. And then there are other industries that actually, if you've studied abroad, it's a very big problem. When I came back, I studied biomedicine. And I think when I was trying to register with the Pharmaceutical Council and trying to register with the Council of Medical Biotechnicians, it was absolute hell. Because they would look at my degree and they'd say, they told me, we can't register you. We can't register you. And this is what they said to me. We can't register you unless you've studied at 4 places. UZ, NUST, Samin Chitungwiza, or, and two, and another. The system is still one of those that was created during the colonial system was more prevalent, because only the richer people the much richer people, very privileged, had the opportunity to study away, to study abroad.
Right.
And then the system was trying to make it so that the people who were here, less privileged, got a chance to get through the system. So, I don't know, to me, it made it seem like it was seen as having an upper hand if you have a head start if you study abroad. And we're trying to get everyone at par when we now start kind of letting everyone register with the council and things like that. Long story short, they didn't even have conversion exams.
Right. So for you to even get that opportunity.
Already that was a bar. That's a bar.
Yeah.
So unless you study here. So that's why I'm saying that for certain systems, it's you're at an advantage if you study here. And for others, you're at an advantage when someone wants you to know that you should wear a robe to dinner, then you're at an advantage. So I think it's very interesting.
This is Dex. I applied for a job on the Barclays Future Leaders program, right? You apply on the website, you get called for psychometric tests. Some people didn't. After the psychometrics, it's fair. After the psychometrics, I got called for an interview. So I get to the interview, and there's 50 of us. I'm like, okay. And how many people do you want? And then, so the lady calls us into this room. She's like, okay, so I'd like to congratulate you for making it this far. There's 100 of you that made it, and 50 came yesterday, and the other 50 are there today. Just so you know how important this is. There were 10,000 people that applied for this program online. 3,000 made it to the psychometrics. They passed the psychometrics, and we had to narrow down from 3,000 to 100. So, and when you apply online, they don't even ask where you did your degree.
Right.
So I'm looking at this, and we're having this discussion. I'm thinking, okay, sometimes, you know what? It's not even about that. It's just sheer dumb luck. I promise.
It is.
I promise. 3,000 people passed psychometrics. And I was one of the 100 that made it to the final interview. And I'm standing there, I'm like, you know what? Getting a job in Zim, it's...
No, sometimes it actually is dumb luck. Because I have a friend who's a manager
There's no formula to it.
at Bon Marché. And he was telling me literally whenever there's an opening, because they've got such a huge power from the floor to the roof, they literally just go in and they're like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
No, okay. Imagine this. You're in HR, right? Have you ever walked? Have you guys ever walked into HR at Zimra? I didn't even drop my seat, you guys. I didn't drop my seat. It was like this. It was like this. Yeah. 3 boxes full of CVs. Let's be honest. I said to myself, you know what? These HR people, I won't even be angry. Because there's 3 boxes of CVs.
I can't be mad.
So now, let's say you get to the interview stage. Do you think that having studied outside would play a possible advantage?
Yeah, where does that come in?
Because now they teach all these things, how to be charming, how to say the right things, and whatnot. So do you think, you studied in in Zim, basically, right? Do they focus on doing the same kind of stuff? Do they dedicate time to grooming you for preparing for jobs and stuff?
For me, I was a different student at MSU. I spent only the hours I was required to spend in class, and then the rest I spent in student development. So I was a member of Rotract, and I was a member of Enactus. So from there, that's where I learned a lot of other stuff. And I'll tell you one thing. If I hadn't gone through that, I probably wouldn't even have the job I have now. Because when you're in the interview, whether you were in the UK or what, if you can't talk to us, you're out.
Then that's it.
Interview is presentation. It's about now. There's stuff like my current job, there's stuff I didn't know. I'm embarrassed to say this, but I work for a nickel company, mining company, and I went to the interview not knowing what the nickel price was. And I'm in accounting. I was in there, I was like, oh snap, what's the nickel price? If they ask me this, I'm out.
That's actually the first question.
But, as the interview was going on, the interview was mostly guided by the first question they asked me, which was obviously, tell us about yourself. And then most of the time they spent asking me, okay, on your CV, we see that you've been to Germany, you've been to this place. What were you doing there? None of it was actually about the job. So I feel like that kind of exposure that I got gave me an edge.
Would you, in any version of reality, would you have studied at home if you didn't study locally?
Actually, no.
Personally, I wouldn't have minded studying locally, but I don't regret studying in Malaysia because for me, Malaysia was such a huge melting pot. You had people from the States, from Germany, from the UK, from France, from Algeria, from just any corner of the globe. So you met so many different people, you know, you experienced so many different cultures and all of that, which is what I really enjoyed the most about Malaysia.
Not everybody can afford to even go as far as university. The fact that I can't get a scholarship or get funded in Zimbabwe or by UZ or MSU, I can't get a scholarship. I have applied, I have tried. But South Africa is willing to pay for my education.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That's strange to me. It's peculiar. So there's something tricky
to be said about whether you do it here or whether they're...
Because, you know, it's because like these countries and these nations, like your example of South Africa, your example of your German friend, they're forward thinking.
Yeah.
They're willing to fund
about
your
the country
because they know in the future it's going to pay dividends. All right? And Zim, the biggest problem we have with, say, our bosses and upper management level, you know, the ages 40s to 50s, is, again, that idea of, you know, if I help this person do this or if I allow this person to shine,
my chance.
I'm now threatened.
Yeah.
But they don't see that it can actually pay dividends for both them and you.
You see me rolling through the avenues. Keep me rocking through these avenues. You see me grinding through these avenues. Check it, yo, let's go.